Hey guys, Mike here again with another DVD unboxing and review video, and in this installment we're going to be taking a look at Shout Factory's Cult Movie Marathon Volumes 1 and Volumes 2, which streets next Tuesday, December 10th. Alright guys, the first title we're going to be taking a look at in this unboxing video is the Cult Movie Marathon Volume 1 2-disc DVD set. So let's go ahead and unbox this thing. As you can see from the cover, we get a nice cool Cult Movie Marathon Volume 1 banner, as well as all the original one-sheet posters for all the films that you're going to find in this collection. As you can see, Disc 1 is Invasion of the B-Girls, as well as the 1969 effort, The Devil's Eight. And then on Disc 2, you have the long-sought-after Unholy Roller starring Claudia Jennings from Gator Bait, and then you also get the Albert Pion film Vicious Lips from 1986. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the back here. As you can see, you get some cool plot descriptions of all of the films in this collection, with some cool screen grabs over here on this side. Turning over to the spine, you get that cool 4 Cult Movie Marathon logo again, with all of the film logos on the side that will be appearing in this collection. Now when you open this one up, you get a pretty cool disc art, again just showcasing all of the logos that you'll see. Disc 1 over here, Invasion of the B-Girls with The Devil's Eight, and then over here you get the Unholy Rollers with Vicious Lips, and then when you take the 2 DVDs out, you get some pretty cool production stills from each of the films with some credits here on the bottom. So that basically wraps up this unboxing of the Cult Movie Marathon Volume 1. Alright guys, let's get right down to it and review all of the films in this collection. First up, on DVD 1, you open up with 1973's Invasion of the B-Girls. Now in this film, a special state investigator is called into a small California town where a series of mysterious deaths have been taking place, and all of them seem to have a common link where all of the men are dying due to excessive sexual activity. It's basically the basic plot just right there. You know, from the title and from the plot itself, once it opens up, it feels like a very B-movie reminiscent of, like, the 1950s, but the film, surprisingly, is played very, very straight and taken pretty seriously at times. Now, obviously, the whole mystery behind all of these deaths are coming from, this laboratory where all these series of experiments have been taking place with bees, and basically this whole kind of tribe of women have been infected by these bee experiments, and they start taking on the characteristics of bees themselves. You see a lot of cool POV shots that look like bees, but it's actually this whole gang of women that are seducing the men, and sometimes women in this film, into sexual situations where they can inevitably kill them. Overall, I actually had a pretty fun time with this. I had never heard of the film before, but I was surprised at how good it was. I will admit that there are some pretty questionable scenes in it where you don't really know what's going on, but there's a lot of bare-chested women appearing in this film for a lot of the runtime, and while that's not a bad thing, there's just things, especially in the final act, that happen that you're like, what's going on here? What are they doing exactly with this villain, or with this victim? A lot of funny, I guess unintentionally funny scenes are taking place in this film, but it's all in good fun and definitely adds to the charm of a film like Invasion of the B-Girls. So overall, I wouldn't say I was disappointed. I was actually pleasantly surprised by this film. Now this film is actually presented in anamorphic widescreen, and it actually looks pretty good. You know, you definitely get some dirt and debris, some flakes and speckles in the print, but overall it looks pretty nice. The black levels could have been a little bit better, but considering this is a budget release, you have to take what you can get in them, and they're not bad. They're just, it would have been nicer if they could have been a little bit more brightened up, but overall not bad at all. Like I said, the print looks in overall nice shape. The Dolby Digital soundtrack is good enough. I mean, dialogue comes across clear. Action scenes are put to the test as best as they can, so overall I didn't miss any dialogue or anything from, hissing or pops in the mix, so overall, I was pleasantly surprised with the video and audio presentation on Invasion of the B-Girls. Overall, not an amazing B-movie, but a surprising, unique film with a pretty nice cast that, give it their all, and while there's some really odd, off-the-wall, questionable scenes in this film, I think that it just adds to the fun and enjoyment that you'll get from Invasion of the B-Girls. Alright guys, and next up you have from 1969, The Devil's Eight. In this film you have a federal agent who helps a chain gang break out from their imprisonment in order to use them in his war on a moonshine ring that has ties all the way up the political ladder. Now this is a film, again, that I had never heard of or seen before, so I have to say it's a really fun addition into this cult movie marathon. It kind of plays a little bit like a predecessor to films like The Expendables, where you get this kind of ragtag, unlikely, group of people to take down, this big, crime operation. Obviously, in The Devil's Eight, it's a little different because they're not mercenaries or people that are actually viewed as, good members of society. They are, imprisoned prisoners on a chain gang. So this federal agent helps them break out, takes them under his wing, trains them in, shooting, on, driving cars properly at high speeds and whatnot, and, they go full force to take down this moonshine ring. Overall, this was fun. I think the real fun and charm of this film comes from the interactions amongst the prisoners themselves and the federal agent that breaks them out. And, their personalities are really bright and colorful, so there's a lot of humor that comes across in all of their interactions. Really great action in this. When it comes down to getting, really, down and dirty with action scenes, there's some cool shootouts, some great explosions, an awesome finale that takes place at, the whole moonshine headquarters of this whole big operation, and, tons of shootouts, hostages taken, explosions going off, cars are going at high speeds and whatnot. So it's a really fun film, for a film that I had never seen before. I walked away really, enjoyed. I found this to be really enjoying. Overall, this film is presented in another anamorphic widescreen transfer, and it looks really good again, actually. Again, there's cases of, some flakes and, dirt and debris in it, but this is, exactly the way you want to see a grindhouse film of this ilk presented. There's nothing that takes away from the overall viewing experience of it, but it's just kind of cool to get that dirtier feeling, so it's very reminiscent of probably the theatrical, how this film would have been theatrically screened back in the late 60s or early to mid-70s. So overall, I did like the way that it was presented. The Dolby Digital soundtrack, as far as the audio, sounds good. Dialogue comes across with no problems. There's some faint, instances of hiss in it, but again, nothing that takes away from you hearing or picking up any important dialogue. Action, obviously, is a big thing in this film, so shootouts and explosions. It's come across pretty robust for what it is. I enjoy listening to movies like this at, an extra loud volume, so they definitely came across really well, so I think that the soundtrack sounds pretty decent on this. But overall, The Devil's Eight was an unexpected film. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but for a fun action film from, cult movie heyday, I think that this was a good one, and it definitely gets my seal of approval. Alright guys, and next up, opening up Disc 2, is probably most people's most sought-after film in this collection, and that's The Unholy Rollers. In this film, it stars Claudia Jennings from the Gator Bait films as a really tough, fierce and independent woman who decides to join a roller derby team, and from that point on, all hell and chaos breaks loose. This is a film that I've been hearing about for years and years back. It really came to the forefront of my attention when I had interviewed Cliff McMillan, producer of the Scream Factory titles and these cult movie marathon collections, when he had expressed how much he loved the film and how happy he was that they secured it for a future release, and this obviously was the release that he was talking about. I had never seen The Unholy Rollers. I've seen the poster for years, and I always thought, wow, what a cool image that is. I bet you that film is awesome. It's really, really great. And finally, thanks to this cult movie marathon, I had the opportunity to check it out, and it delivered on all fronts. I had such a blast with Unholy Rollers. All of the characters in it are so memorable. The really violent and over-the-top, roller derby scenes are really cool. Claudia Jennings is just strikingly beautiful in this one. She is gorgeous, and she's so, tough in this one. She doesn't take anything from men or women or her coaches, so she just really goes completely crazy, especially in the final scene, during the final roller derby scene. She really just, loses her cool and goes absolutely nuts. But this is just, this is the kind of films that I really like when it's, when you're dealing with cult films, because it just kind of takes a very unique, setting and circumstances and, placing it on, something as I guess unconventional as a roller derby team. You hear that and you're like, oh, how could that possibly be interesting? It's really interesting and really, really entertaining. What I think is important to note in this release is the original soundtrack that accompanied this film has been altered due to rights reasons. So while I had never grown up on seeing the film, I think I can probably point out which films have been substituted, but for me, seeing it for the first time, I didn't really see anything that seemed, out of place whatsoever. The scene that at least I think music was replaced, I think it's at a bar scene when, some band that's performing on there, it's not the original music that you would have seen in, I guess it's theatrical viewing, but the music sounds good in this one. I thought that it was actually pretty good, and I didn't really see any major things, but I did think it was important to note for big fans of Unholy Rollers that have been looking forward to this one, yes, music has been altered, but don't let that deter you from picking this one up, because who knows when and if the Unholy Rollers will ever get another release, but I'm just happy that it is out because I had such a fun time in this one. This probably, right next to the next film that we're going to be talking about, are my favorite films in this collection. And another interesting thing to note about the Unholy Rollers, in the opening credits of this film, I did notice that Martin Scorsese was an associate editor on this film. Never would have imagined that, but yes, he was. This film, unlike all the other films in this collection that are Anamorphic widescreen, Unholy Rollers is presented in a full-frame transfer. And while that's, not as pleasing to most people, which I understand, I will go on record and say that the full frame transfer on Unholy Rollers actually looks really good. I didn't really see any problems with it. Again, just like the other films in this collection, you're going to deal with scratches and pops in the prints, but for a film that definitely seems like lower budgeted than the other ones in this collection, I think it actually looked pretty good. I mean, it didn't look any dirtier or any worse than the other, films in this. There are scenes when you see, especially when they're at the roller derby and camera movements are taking POV shots of, like, Claudia Jennings or other girls on the teams, skating around the rink. That footage can get a little rough, but it's still, completely coherent. You can see everything that's going on. It's just a little dirtier than others, but overall, for a full-frame transfer, I was pleasantly surprised with it. I thought that it looked good. Colors looked good. Skin tones looked fine, and of course black levels, like all the all the films in this, the black levels are going to be a little on the hazy side, but nothing awful. The Dolby Digital mono soundtrack, I don't know why I'm having trouble saying that today, but it sounds good. Again, dialogue comes across fine. You get a slight hissing on there, but luckily nothing that takes away from hearing any dialogue or enjoying any of the cool music that's found in this film. So as far as video and audio presentation, not bad at all. You'll definitely walk away enjoying the Unholy Rollers, but overall, had a huge blast with the Unholy Rollers. Definitely one of my favorites in this cult movie marathon collection. Alright guys, and closing up this cult movie marathon collection, you have Vicious Lips from 1986, directed by Albert Pion, who's been responsible for a slew of good cult movies like Cyborg and Captain America, which is also available from Shout Factory in a Blu-ray edition. In Vicious Lips, this deals with an all-girl rock group from outer space who are trying to work their way up the ladder and, try and make all the fame they could ever hope for, but on the road there, everything from psycho killers to comets gets in their way from stardom. This film, again, a film that I've always been intrigued and seen the poster art for. As you can see, that great poster art is just delicious. It's awesome. I love artwork like that. I've always seen it through the years, but I had never taken the time to actually sit down and watch the film itself. Thankfully, Shout Factory's changed all that, and this film, again, is unbelievably good. I mean, I had such a fun time with this film. I think that it looked fantastic. The girls are wonderful in this film. And the soundtrack, the songs that these girls actually perform are awesome. I want to get my hands on the soundtrack for Vicious Lips as soon as possible. The songs were just so memorable and really tap into that, you know, poppy, new wave, mid-80s sound that was so, you know, popular at its time. But yeah, I had such a great time with this. I thought the set decoration was really good, the makeup effects, all of the characters in this, the actors and actresses themselves, really gave it their all, and they're so funny and just so, you know, that you can see that they're hamming up and having just a good time with this film, and that just made for such an enjoyable viewing experience for me, at least. By the time this film ended, I really thought that this was my favorite film in the collection, and which is saying a lot, because once I finished Unholy Rollers, I was like, wow, Unholy Rollers is definitely the best film in this. But now that I've had, you know, close to a few days to kind of digest all the films in this collection, I really can't pick a favorite. Unholy Rollers and Vicious Lips definitely are my favorite films in this collection. But, yeah, I mean, they're both great, but Vicious Lips was a really, really good, unexpected, you know, science fiction kind of musical film. It clocks in at only 80 minutes, but it's a very breezy film and just offers nothing but fun and, you know, really good entertainment value. So I will definitely be revisiting all of the films in this collection. Vicious Lips is presented in yet another anamorphic widescreen transfer, and honestly, out of all the films in this collection, it looks the best. I think that the colors pop really, really well. There was really to my eye, at least, I didn't see hardly any, you know, pops or scratches in it. Really nice filmic layer of grain is firmly intact in this print, so it, without a doubt, is the best looking film in this collection. The Dolby Digital mono soundtrack, again, sounds really good, and I think it has the best soundtrack out of all of the films in this collection. You know, the music in this, which is really loud and, of course, robust, comes across really, really well on your speakers if you're blasting it, but dialogue comes across clear as a whistle, so no issues in that department either. But yeah, definitely as far as video and audio, Vicious Lips is the hands-down best-looking film and best, you know, hearing film also in this collection. But overall, Shout Factory's Cult Movie Marathon Volume 1 is a wonderful budgeted release to kind of catch up on these bygone cult classics that probably won't see you know, releases, or at least better releases in the future. So I'm really happy that Shout Factory decided to take some lesser-loved films and put them in a collection like this, which is easily affordable, and while it might not be for everybody, I think that this is a really, you know, great collection of quality cult films to add in everybody's collection for, you know, a really, really low price. So really awesome stuff. Alright guys, now let's get down to my final grades for everything in this Cult Movie Marathon collection. As far as the movies themselves, I'm definitely prepared to give this a 4.5 out of 5. I think that there's something for everybody in this Cult Movie Marathon collection. If you're a big lover of genre films, or, you know, the cult stuff that you find in this collection, I can't see how you won't walk away loving at least one of the films. But like I said, if you're a big cult fan, I think that there's going to be something for everybody in here. I had a great time with everything in this collection. Some I favored more than others. Obviously, the Unholy Rollers and Vicious Lips were my two favorites of this collection, but I think that out there, everybody is going to find something to enjoy, so definitely 4.5 out of 5. As far as the video presentations on here, I think everything looked pretty decent. You do get anamorphic widescreen transfers of 3 out of the 4 films that all look pretty good. Even Unholy Rollers' full-frame transfer looks good. There are flakes and speckles and, you know, scratches in the print, but as a budgeted release, you know, you couldn't have expected, you know, grand remasterings of everything in this film, so keeping expectations at bay on this one, I'm giving this a 3 out of 5. Everything looked good, but nothing's overly amazing, but nothing outright looks terrible either. So overall, looks good. Everything you'll be able to pick up fine. It's just not going to be, you know, this amazing HD transfer masterpiece that some might be expecting. So definitely keep expectations at bay. As far as the audio quality on this one, I'll be giving this one a 3 out of 5 as well. Dialogue comes across clearly on all of the films. There's slight instances of hisses and pops in each of the soundtrack mixes, but nothing that sounds bad. In films like The Devil's Eight and Vicious Lips, where action and music take a big front seat to the soundtrack, things come across really loud and robust, which is great for, you know, the viewing experience. But overall, nothing overly amazing, but nothing downright terrible either. So definitely a strong 3 out of 5 for this. As far as extras on this one, there's really nothing on here except a trailer for Invasion of the B-Girls, which is definitely more than I would have expected. I wasn't expecting any features on this or Volume 2's collection at all. So the fact that they did include just that one trailer, I will just be giving this one a 1 out of 5, but that's not a backhanded, insult on this collection. It's just to let people more or less know that there's a really small, close to nothing as far as special features are prepared. So again, keep expectations at bay. But I think most that are buying this budgeted release know what they're getting themselves in for. But yes, I'll give the extras a 1 out of 5, but there is something. The Invasion of the B-Girls trailer is a fun little addition to the film itself. But overall, I'll definitely be giving this collection a solid 4 out of 5. Just based on the strength of all of the films themselves. I thought that everything in this collection is a really good time. I think Shout Factory did a nice job selecting the films and putting them all together in this. You get a nice, great, eclectic mix of, different subgenres of the cult movie universe, and I think all of the presentations are decent enough. Like I said, 3 out of 4 are an anamorphic widescreen, with the Unholy Rollers full-frame transfer looking as best as you could imagine for a full-frame transfer. So overall, if you're a big cult nut like I am, you can't go wrong with Shout Factory's Cult Movie Marathon Volume 1. And don't forget, it streets next Tuesday, December 10th. Alright guys, streeting next Tuesday, December 10th as well is Shout Factory's Volume 2 of the Cult Movie Marathon Collection. Now let's go ahead and unbox this thing. As you can see, again, you have a similar for Cult Movie Marathon logo up top, just in a different color, as well as all the one-sheet posters for the movies that you're going to find in this collection, Angels from Hell and Chatterbox on Disc 1, and The Naked Cage and Savage Island starring Linda Blair on Disc 2. Let's go ahead and give you a shot of the back there. Again, very similar to the same spread on Volumes 1. You have, all the descriptions to the films over here, and then you get some cool screen grabs from each of the films here, and then a nice shot of the spine, that logo up top with all of the films' logo fonts on the spine itself, which is a nice touch. And then when you open it up, you have the discs themselves. As you can see right here, on Disc 1, you have Angels from Hell and Chatterbox, and then on Disc 2, you have The Naked Cage and Savage Island. So once again, guys, Shout Factory's Cult Movie Marathon Volume 2 streets next Tuesday, December 10th. Alright guys, and the first film to open up DVD 1 on this collection is 1968's Angels from Hell. Now in this biker film, it deals with a Vietnam War vet who returns from the tragic war and has plans to join up with his old biker gang again. And when that happens, all chaos ensues when a war breaks out between the biker gang and the local police. Again, a film that I had never seen or heard before, and being not a huge lover of the biker films of the day, Angels from Hell was a nice, actually pretty pleasant surprise. I never really enjoyed bigger biker films like Easy Rider, so I kind of like more of like the B-grade cult stuff like Angels from Hell. So this was one that was a real, welcome addition for me, because, like I said, not being a big fan of the biker films, this was one that, I don't know, there was just something about it. The personalities in the biker gang are really fun. Some of them are really nutty. Some of them are really humorous. Some of them are just downright creepy. So I kind of liked that real nice balance of personalities and characters that you're dealing with in the film. You get just an overload of really beautiful girls that, kind of tag along with the biker gang themselves. The head of the biker gang, the Vietnam War vet that comes home, is a really great presence. He's, a really dominant guy and has a lot of authority within his gang. And then really when he comes back, the whole understanding that the police and this gang had prior is kind of, deals off now that the original president is back in town from the war. So from that point on, the cops are after the gang, and the gang are after the cops, and it's just really this really big back and forth battle, and the film surprisingly ends on a really unexpected and shocking note that I didn't see coming, so that in itself really made it a nice, surprising biker film to uncover. This film is actually presented in anamorphic widescreen, and it is the only anamorphic widescreen transfer that you will find on Volume 2's collection. It looks good. Again, you know, akin to the other films that were found in Volume 1, you're going to see some scratches and pops. Colors are slightly faded in this one, but it doesn't look bad. I mean, everything comes across fine. The scratches are fine, and especially for a biker, you know, grindhouse film, that's kind of the way you want to see this film anyway. You don't want this so overly cleaned up that, you know, it just doesn't really feel like a product of its time anymore, so I was actually happy with the way that it was presented. The Dolby Digital mono soundtrack, again, is fine, you know, no problems with it. You know, you hear some inherent hiss, you know, time and time again, but nothing bad. Dialogue comes across fine. It doesn't hurt to raise that volume button a little bit, just to ensure that you're picking up everything, but, you know, the roar of the motorcycle engines, and then, you know, any, you know, fights or, you know, brawls that they have come across without any hitches, but overall, Angels from Hell was a nice, pleasant surprise as far as biker films go. Alright guys, and next up from 1976 and the director of Hell Night comes Chatterbox. In this film, a girl's life is turned upside down when her reproductive organ suddenly starts to sing and propels her to fame and stardom. Now, I really had no idea what to expect from Chatterbox. All I could take from it is, well, there's going to be a singing vagina movie on this collection. That's interesting. I've never heard of that. At least I've never heard of this particular film, but I'll give it a whirl. And interestingly enough, Chatterbox was hilarious. I mean, I had so much fun with this film. A lot more fun than I could have ever imagined from a film that's about a girl's talking vagina. Like, I couldn't believe it. I mean, it's really a predecessor to films like Teeth, but it just kind of does a complete 360 where it kind of goes the real lighthearted comedic route with a concept like that. And as far as I'm concerned, it, you know, succeeds in spades. I thought that it was really good. The girl, Candice Rylson, who's appeared in Candy Stripe Nurses, is beautiful. And she's normally nude for a good chunk of the 76-minute runtime of this film, so that's never a bad thing as far as cult movies are concerned. TNA is, like, always welcome and expected thing, so be rest assured that you see plenty of it in Chatterbox. But, yeah, the voice that comes out of her reproductive organ is hilarious. She has some really choice one-liners, and she starts going by the name Virginia, which is very, very classy and hysterical. But, yeah, really funny. The psychologist or psychiatrist that she goes to for help dealing with this new thing, quickly not only becomes her psychologist, but also becomes her talent manager and booking her in theaters and venues all across the world, so she gets movie deals and everything, so it's this crazy, crazy, unexpected story that propels her to fame, all due to this reproductive organ that she never expected she had. But, yeah, I actually had a really, really fun time with Chatterbox, and one that I could absolutely see myself introducing to friends or other cult movie enthusiasts who had never seen this film before. But Chatterbox was a very fun, unexpected time that I really urge a lot of people to check out, and, you know, just keep an open mind about it and get ready to laugh, because it's a really funny film. This film, like the rest of the films that you'll find in this collection, are full frame, and, well, this one definitely, kind of shows its, you know, presumably tape-sourced transfer. You see scratches and lines, you'll see pops. You know, this one isn't really in the best of shape, but luckily things do come across good. There was never an issue where I had to, you know, backtrack to see if I missed a line of dialogue or missed anything in the transfer itself. It looked fine, and I heard everything fine. The Dolby Digital soundtrack is sufficient enough. Like I said, you're gonna hear everything fine. It's just not a great-looking picture to it, but like I said, I mean, this is a film about a talking vagina that, you know, is barely an hour long, so it's a miracle that a film like this even has materials that are sufficient enough to show. But like I said, this one is a great time. You have a funny appearance by Rip Taylor as the owner of a female salon. His appearance is very small, but he's really, really funny in the scenes that he does appear in. But like I said, Chatterbox, didn't know what to expect when I saw it, had me rolling on the floor by the end of it, so definitely check out Chatterbox. This one is a fun time. Alright guys, and opening up Disc 2 is 1986's The Naked Cage. In this film, it deals with a girl, an escaped female convict named Rita, who teams up with a druggie named Willie to rob a local bank where Willie's ex-girlfriend works. Chaos ensues, the cops show up, Willie is shot and killed, as well as another officer, and by some circumstance, Rita and the girl that works at the bank, Michelle, are taken into custody and are both thrown back into a female prison. And from that point on, it is a full-on women in prison extravaganza. The Naked Cage is a film that has evaded me for years. I would go to conventions, and I would see bootleg copies after bootleg copies year in and year out, and I always meant to pick it up because there was something so alluring about that one-sheet poster art that I'm like, I gotta see that film, I gotta see that film. And for a big fan of women in prison films, The Naked Cage, after all these years, absolutely met all of my expectations. It is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, women in prison film now, and definitely one of the best cult movies I've seen in a really long time. And I know that's a really bold statement, but this film just fit the bill on everything that I look for in women in prison films and cult films in general. I mean, you have all the ingredients in there. You have good-looking women. You have a wicked warden that's taking advantage of the girls in, sexual ways. You have a really creepy scumbag officer, male scumbag officer who takes the girls and has his way with them. You have cat fights. You have, people making prison-made knives to get them in the shower. You have it all in this film. Drug use. I mean, it's all there in all of its women in prison glory. So I'm so happy that this film, lived up to everything I hoped it would be. I had such a fun time with The Naked Cage. I just thought it was such a great film, and one that I will be definitely returning to time and time again. It's no surprise that director Paul Nichols directed this. He also was responsible for another one of my favorite women in prison films, the Linda Blair film Chained Heat. So he definitely had a thing going for a brief time of making really good women in prison films, but definitely The Naked Cage is my favorite women in prison film now, and if you haven't seen it, that film alone in this collection, at least in my opinion, is the main draw for the Cult Movie Marathon Volume 2 collection. It was a great film. The full-frame transfer in this one is barely decent, I will give it that. Everything was shown fine, but you definitely see, I'm assuming the tape source that it was coming from. There are scratches and debris in it. You also see some tracking lines pop up in it, which is a bit of a bummer, but like I said, for a film that had never been out on DVD before, I'm a little bit more, fans should be a little bit more comfortable paying $10 or less, really, to get all 4 of these films in legitimate press releases, as opposed to paying $10 or more at a convention for, a bootleg that is just a DVD-R or something. So this definitely is a good way to go, but The Naked Cage, everything comes across. You hear everything, but there are just those, minor, inconsistencies that kind of just really show the wear and tear of the source that was used for this. Black levels are really not that great, when they're in, really darker scenes, in dark cells, at nighttime scenes in the jail itself. Those can get a little hazy and hard to see, but luckily there's a lot of the film takes place like during the daytime on the yard, afternoon scenes in the jail cafeteria. So there's a lot of time where there's brightly lit scenes, so there's really no issue seeing anything. But there just are there are those moments where it's dark, especially at the finale. There are moments like in the climax where Rita and Michelle are having, their big fight. feet, and it just gets a little hard to see due to the source, but don't let that, be anything to stop you from seeing The Naked Cage and picking this collection up, because I had such a great time with this. The Dolby Digital soundtrack, again, is sufficient enough. That comes across fine. There was nothing that stopped me from hearing any dialogue or any action that I was taking, so that definitely is in better shape than the video transfer itself. But I can go on and on for The Naked Cage, but it's definitely the best film in this collection, and I highly recommend everybody checking it out. Okay, guys, and wrapping up Volume 2 of the Cult Movie Marathon is 1985's Savage Island. In this film, it deals with a group of South American female prisoners who have to work under brutal conditions, working in a mine, and to escape from their captors, they team up with a band of jewelry thieves. This film, there's no nice way to put it, it's not a good film. It's really not. I mean, it complements The Naked Cage to an extent, because it kind of treads on the line of women in prison and, women in captive, or however you want to put it, but it's not a good film. You have an appearance by Linda Blair that it's kind of just sandwiched. You could definitely tell that this is a case where this film, it obviously was a film that was shot in like another language, because you can tell from the horribly dubbed sequences of all of the girls in the South American sequences, and Linda Blair's appearances are just kind of like sandwiched in the beginning and in the end. She doesn't play a major role whatsoever. She's in this film for a very, very small appearance. It kind of borders on like a cameo, but I know that they kind of put her front and center on the poster, but don't get caught up in that. This is just not a really good film at all. I mean, there's far better women in prison films and films of this ilk, but it's pretty bad. The video transfer on this, again, it's another full-frame presentation, and it, without question, is the worst looking of all the films in Volume 1 and Volume 2. Just doesn't look good. It's very ratty looking. It's the VHS tape, which I'm assuming it's from. It's definitely tape sourced, I would say. It looks really good. It definitely shows, it looks really bad, excuse me. It's definitely showing its age. There's lines. I saw tracking lines at some point. The black levels are really, really rough. I mean, there are moments, especially early on, where I couldn't even see what was going on, so it's a shame, but I would have been a little bit more disappointed if the film was just incredible, but it got this kind of video treatment. But you have to keep your expectations at bay. These are budgeted releases. They're like $10 or less, and you're definitely getting a lot out of it. But in the case of Savage Island, definitely be warned that it's not a great looking film by any means. The dialogue, the Dolby Digital soundtrack does come across, but you're definitely going to have to raise your volume a little bit. That's not in the best of condition either. But like I said, it's really badly dubbed, and, there's moments where I was watching it and I'm like, these characters are talking and they're not even moving their lips. Like, they didn't even try on this. So it's pretty bad. The film is not really a memorable one, but I can see where the addition of it on a collection like this makes sense. But I definitely would have picked another women in prison film or something like that to go along with the far superior Naked Cage. But like I said, Savage Island is probably the stinker of this whole collection. Okay, guys, and let's give my final grades for Volume 2 of the Cult Movie Marathon. Now, the films themselves, again, I think that there's definitely going to be something for everybody in this collection, but like I said, there definitely is a very obvious weak link in this collection, and it would be in 1985's Savage Island. But Angels from Hell was a nice, pleasant surprise as far as biker films go. Chatterbox was an unexpected, hilarious romp for me that I really, really enjoyed, and The Naked Cage was a superior women in prison film, and definitely one of the best cult films that I've seen in quite some time. So overall, the quality of the films themselves, I will be giving this collection a 4 out of 5. Had a really good time with it. Savage Island was definitely a bust, but overall the 3 other films were really good, and The Naked Cage was awesome. As far as the video presentation, Volume 2 is definitely in a little bit more rougher shape than Volume 1's transfers. Like I've mentioned earlier, 3 out of the 4 films in this collection are full frame, and some of them just aren't in the best shape. I mean, even The Naked Cage, my favorite film in this collection, had its rough patches with black levels, not looking that great. Savage Island just looked really, really rough. Angels from Hell definitely looked good, although colors were a little slightly drained, and Chatterbox definitely had its fair share of scratches and pops and debris, especially for the full-frame transfer that it was. But overall, if expectations are kept firmly at bay, then I'm more than happy giving this a 3 out of 5, although some instances might have you thinking that some of these films should have been warranted a 2 or a 2.5 out of 5. And while you may be right, I'm really grading this on an overall basis of all of the films. So I think that all of the films collectively still managed to bring this up to a 3 out of 5. You can see everything for 95% of all of the films without any major issues. So I can't really be that harsh on it, especially for it being a budgeted pack. So definitely a 3 out of 5 for the video. Audio, all of the film's audio are pretty decent and sufficient enough. Dialogue comes across. Hissing and pops are minimal on the soundtracks, and nothing. If there's anything that comes across low in the soundtracks, it's really nothing that can't be fixed with a little raising of your volume. So they're not bad. They're not amazing. So I'll definitely be giving the audio in this collection another 3 out of 5. Not amazing, but definitely not the worst, god-awful things I've ever seen. There are no special features present on this, so nothing to grade on this one. So overall, based on, just the strength of the films themselves, I'll give this collection a 4 out of 5. I think that there's still enough in this collection that, hardcore, cult enthusiasts will take from. Angels from Hell was a fun time. Chatterbox was a really good, diamond in the rough as far as peculiar comedies go. And The Naked Cage is a supreme, awesome women in prison film that all fans of cult cinema and women in prison films should definitely get around to seeing immediately because it's great. 1985 Savage Island was without question the worst film out of both of these collections, so I really can't say anything too kind about it. And while the audio and video presentations of these kind of border on decent, from mediocre to slightly below that, I'm still okay, seeing everything and hearing everything, although, black levels at times made some scenes a little bit more of a struggle to see than others, but overall, I'll give this collection a 4 out of 5. Alright guys, that concludes my DVD unboxing and review video of Shout Factory's Cult Movie Marathons Volume 1 and Volume 2 release. Don't forget this street's next Tuesday, December 10th, so be sure to lock in your copies today. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in another installment.